Namaskar, Nileshok, and welcome back to the series on the precession of the Earth's axis, precession of the equinoxes, and its effects or the consequences of the precession of the Earth's axis and its relevance for understanding the antiquity of Indian civilization. This would be part 2. In part 1, we looked at the difference between the tropical calendar and the sidereal calendar. So let's do a quick revision of that. This will be part 2. And since I just now completed part 2 in Marathi, I can tell that there will be a part 3, and I'll tell you what we will cover in part 2, but also in part 3. All right. So tropical versus sidereal. Tropical calendar versus sidereal calendar, these are not really two different sets of calendars. In fact, tropical calendar is where we begin with because that's immediately applicable to us, okay? Seasons. And that has a significant effect on human life wherever, whatever part of the earth that we are living. So that was very immediate. But as astronomers or as human beings, or in the Indian context, Indian sages started making observations, they started noticing some additional changes which are extremely slow in their occurrence. So they may not be observed in one lifetime. They possibly may not be noticed in a few lifetimes. So there has to be a system of sophisticated knowledge creation, but also knowledge preservation and knowledge transference to the generations about things that may sound esoteric as like astronomy, not immediately relevant to the everyday survival, eating, and protection, and so on. So that because of the some unique things, very innovative, creative, ingenious things that occurred in the Indian civilization, the Hindu civilization, therefore it became possible to actually create this extremely deep tradition of astronomy. In other parts of the world, this would have happened, this might have happened. Unfortunately, with all the destruction of the ancient documents, say especially South America, for example, possibly in the North America, maybe not the documents, but the oral tradition of the natives of North America, with that gone, okay, basically, we have very little knowledge of what was out there. We see some insights, some glimpses for, say, civilizations in Africa or Egyptian civilization. But then those are also the civilization which had direct contact with India in not that distant past. Be it as it may. So we looked at the tropical calendar versus sidereal calendar. The important thing to take away from the tropical calendar is tropical calendar is basically Rutu Chakra calendar, Rutu Chakra Pancham. Everything is about the sun and the position of the sun with respect to the earth, especially the earth's inclination and when it faces the sun. Okay, that is the point of summer solstice. So in that sense, summer solstice point became very important. Spring equinox point became important. Okay, and actually all the cardinal points. So is the winter solstice. Now, why these 4 cardinal points? Because if somebody stands facing the east direction, those are very distinct points with distinct properties. So when sun is rising exactly in the east direction, due east, that is the point of equinox, and people could sense it, sense the change in the weather, okay, in both direction after Sharad Sampat, or after the fall equinox or autumnal equinox, temperatures getting cooler. After the spring equinox, temperatures getting hotter. And the summer solstice is when the sun is rising into as far as north as it can. That is the point of summer solstice. Ditto for the winter solstice, when the sun rises as far south as it can. Usually that's, I mean, not usually, in the northern hemisphere, that's connected with the beginning of a winter. Okay. This tropical calendar, Rutu Chakra, has absolutely nothing to do with the moon. That's what we understood. Then we looked at the sidereal calendar. Sidereal calendar is not a standalone calendar. Essentially, you start with the tropical calendar and now superimpose the nakshatra system. And now when the Indian sages, Indian astronomers started observing for a very long time, where they can transmit the knowledge, okay, through written material, through oral tradition, they could preserve it in an impeccable fashion, okay, they can educate people about the past knowledge. The knowledge kept on growing. Indian astronomy became extremely precise and sophisticated. And in that process, what did they notice is that if you remove the reference to nakshatra frame, then if everything is happening just purely on a tropical calendar basis, which is to say nobody bothered to look at the stars or any variation, any change of the position of the star with respect to the seasons, with respect to the position of the sun, the moon, guess what? If that's ignored, then tropical calendar is like things happening in a closed room, dark room. People don't know whether it's a daytime or a nighttime, okay? Something like this. That is basically we saw is a Gregorian calendar. Gregorian calendar is tropical calendar, tropical and therefore solar calendar, but tropical solar calendar. As against that, we didn't much delve into it. That's not even relevant. But Islamic calendar is purely lunar calendar. 12 rotations of the moon, okay, around the earth, and we have got an Islamic calendar. Now, because we look at the position of the moon from Amavasya to Amavasya, therefore the position of the sun is important, but otherwise it's purely lunar calendar. Islamic calendar does not have a concept of a Adhika Masa, okay, intercalated month, because there is no question of it trying to synchronize with the solar calendar. Now, the Gregorian calendar has no concept of the sidereal calendar because it said, let's just forget about the stars, okay, as far as the calendar portion is concerned. All we will care is that make sure that the day of vernal equinox matches with 21st of March. Now, this is just a very crude way of me saying it so that it becomes easy for you to remember 21st, 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 21st March, 21st June, 21st September, 21st December. The day of summer solstice matches with 21st June. The day of fall equinox matches, Sharat Sampat matches with 21st September. And the day of winter solstice matches with 21st December. That's their whole objective. And it's not a bad objective. With that, of course, with the help of Indian astronomy, okay, but they created a very precise tropical solar calendar. Everything has its pluses and minuses, okay? For example, we'll ignore the Islamic calendar for now, just to keep the focus on what we need to achieve. But with the tropical calendar, purely tropical calendar, such as, say, a Gregorian calendar, hypothetically speaking, if Bhagwan Vyasadeva would have used it, guess what? We would be hard-pressed to figure out exactly when Mahabharata war happened. If Bhagwan Valmiki would have used it, we would say it happened a long time ago, while Ramayana, but we don't know when. Because, as I said, the purely tropical calendar, removed from the references or a discussion of the star position, nakshatra position, zodiac position, is like there is no difference the way we will use a tropical calendar today versus 7,500 years ago at the time of Mahabharata versus 14,000 years ago in 12,209 BC at the time of Ramayana. No difference. Then comes the Indian calendar, which is a lunisolar calendar. And so what happens? Okay, we are going to look at the 4 consequences of it. So let's go right there. So this is my tropical calendar. I superimpose the sidereal calendar, and due to the precession of the Earth's axis, that's the real reason. Okay, we call it precession of equinoxes. it's a misnomer, okay, not a correct name. It's perfectly okay to use it in practice because it has become a convention. But the precession of the equinoxes is said that way because in recent times, not that long ago, about 2000 years ago, as far as the West is concerned, this is the first time they became aware of this phenomenon, at least as far as the documented history is concerned. Okay, their ancestors might have been known, but definitely the knowledge was lost. And so what happened was that sidereal, that shift of the precession of the axis, the moment of the axis, that creates a shift with the tropical calendar, was known to them only through the shift in the vernal equinox, and that's why they thought it's the precession moment of the equinoxes. Anyways, how much is that moment? So using a equinox to understand precession is not a bad idea. So what happens? Sun starts from the point of vernal equinox. It makes a complete circle in about 365 days, comes back to that point. We call that tropical year, vernal equinox to vernal equinox. On the other hand, just imagine right at that point next to vernal equinox is one of the nakshatra star, Yogatara, say Chitra, okay, Spica. Now, if you imagine a solar year that begins with perfect alignment of Earth, Spica, and Sun, okay, in one line. So that's where it begins. It completes one round. Sun completes one round around the Earth, comes back right at that point, right at that star. Okay, that will be considered a sidereal year. Now, what happens? The point of vernal equinox, when Sun comes back to that point again, it comes 20 minutes faster than Sun's ability to align itself with that same star that it was aligned with last year. So thus there is a gap of 20 minutes between sidereal year and a tropical year. Sidereal year is longer than a tropical year by 20 minutes. 20 minutes on time in terms of the circle or the space, it amounts to about 50 arc second. What does that mean? You can look at it both ways. Sun travels around the Earth every day by about 1 degree. That is what we know. Okay, 360 degrees, it travels within 365 days. Sometimes it travels faster, other times it travels slower. Net, it takes 365 days, on an average 1 degree. Now you can do this calculation by that way. So 1 day shift corresponds to 1 degree. Other way to look at this is if you look at the gap of 20 minutes. So every year there is going to be a gap of 20 minutes between the sidereal year and a tropical year. What does that mean? In 3 years, there will be a gap of 1 hour, right? 20, 20, 20, 60 minutes. If you want to find out how many years we have to go before we have a gap of 1 day, that is to say 24 hours, what do we need to do? 3 years, we get a gap of 1 hour. 24 hours, how many years we need to go by? 24 times 3, 72 years. If we give a gap of that, then there is going to be a gap of 1 day between the sidereal year and the tropical year. Got it? Now remember, that's approximately 1 degree. That's why we are saying about 1 degree. Now you have to go through 360 degrees, which is to say 72 times 360. And the number you're going to get is about 26,000 years. That is how long it takes for the Earth's axis to rotate and complete one circle. Okay. Now, because of that, there are multiple consequences. We looked at the 4 of them. We will, in this session, look at the first 2. The pole star changes because the north celestial point or the north celestial pole point changes. Ditto happens for the south celestial point. We will see why that happens. And the second point, very obvious, we have already looked at it, is that the nakshatra of the cardinal points is going to change, which is to say the nakshatra, the position for the sun with respect to the earth at any given time, okay, at any cardinal points, but along its path, it creates different 6 seasons that any point it is going to change, and that just basically what we saw last time. I'm going to show that again. In the next part, we will look at the effect of that on the lunar month. Okay, this is the most basic, simple 101 thing to understand about astronomy. Unfortunately, the reasons could be many, but we will not psychoanalyze these. I will not psychoanalyze. At least I will restrict myself from psychoanalyzing these trolls, okay, who have not only very limited knowledge of astronomy, but they have almost internalized wrong, negative, okay, knowledge of astronomy. But they are very cocky about their knowledge, okay, so they're sticking to it. And now that they have been exposed, okay, they don't know how to face, how to accept the errors, how to face the defeat. So what they are doing, they are just going on ad hominem attacks on me. Okay, so that also we will analyze at some point. But this is number 3, very important, actually very simple to understand. I'll quickly mention it. We are going to cover that again in the next point, but the repetition is important. I'm hoping that this 3-part series allows good number of people, anyone interested with a reasonable amount of intellect and some visualization ability and some basics of astronomy, just sees this and says, why did it take me this long? Okay, one of the simple thing is this. If you understand the precession of the Earth's axis, and again, you say, oh no, but I don't think it happens. Well, you are in the wrong place here, man, because either you have to spend time to understand why it happens, how there is evidence in modern astronomy and Indian astronomy and other astronomies of the world, ancient astronomies of the world, or you have to take it on a Shraddha. But so once you understand that, what is happening is the position of the sun as measured by the reference nakshatra is changing. That is what this precession of the Earth's axis is. Okay, that is that point number 2. Now, point 2 and 3 are directly connected. So if the position, if the nakshatra at when the sun is at, say, summer solstice, which is to say the summer month, like today in our times, for example, the summer solstice 21st June. What is the summer month? It's a June, right? 21st June. Now the corresponding lunar month, the Chandramas, is what? Jeshta Ashada. Why is that? Because the sun's position is such that around 21st June, it doesn't have to be exact that day, but around 21st June, when the full moon occurs, the position of the full moon is near nakshatra Jeshta or Ashad. Jeshta, Mula, Purvashada, Uttarashada, or you can say Anuradha, Jeshta, Mula, Purvashada, Uttarashada, somewhere there. And because the full moon position is near Jeshta or Ashada, we call that month the month of June or Ashada. Where is that position? It's exactly 180-degree opposite to the position of the sun. So now because number 2 point there, because of the precession, if the position of the sun with respect to, say, summer solstice is going to change, the nakshatra is going to change, right? So when sun comes to summer point of summer solstice, the nakshatra is going to change. Okay, so right now, let's say it was Kritika. Okay, and now it goes after 2000 years, now it goes to 2-3 other separated nakshatras. Guess what? When the day of summer solstice comes, the exactly 180-degree opposite point where the full moon would occur, the nakshatra of that full moon is also going to change. So if it was a Jeshta, okay, and if you go, where do you want to go? Let's say you want to go in the past. Okay, what you will find is that the full moon did not occur near Jeshta, but rather it occurred or Ashada, or rather it occurred near Shravana Nakshatra. Because sun position has changed, and exactly opposite 180-degree is going to be the full moon position on the day of summer solstice when that occurs. That is what number 3 is. Okay. And we are going to visually see that in part 3. And of course, the last one, very important. If there is, in the context of Mahabharata, one scientific empirical, crucial, decisive, fabulous evidence, crucial experiment, crucial evidence that we have to refer in the 21st century. It is that Arundhati Vasishtha observation. Why is it that if you look at Arundhati Vasishtha tonight, you will find that Vasishtha is walking ahead, Arundhati behind. But why is it that the Vyasadeva is saying that at the time of Mahabharat war, it is Arundhati walking ahead and Vasishtha behind? That has to do with the relative orientation of a star pair such as Arundhati Vasishtha, as seen from the earth, looking different. Their orientation is such that right now we feel Vasishtha is ahead, but 7,500 years ago at the time of Mahabharata, the orientation was such because of the change in NCP, SCP, that people on the earth could see Arundhati ahead and Vasishtha behind. Okay? That's the fourth consequence. Now, precession can have many other consequences, but these, if you remember these four consequences, based on my 30 plus years of experience, I will tell you, you are in the top 20 percentile folks in astronomy, in visual astronomy, and in the context of using astronomy to date ancient events happening in India or anywhere around the world, bar none. That is my promise. If you spend time, if you do tapasya to understand this, this is how fabulous, this is how actually simple it is once you spend time. Now, if you remain scared and fearful that you will never understand it, then probably you are right. Okay, you will not understand it. So it's your choice. I'm not trying to push this thing through you, but it is actually not complicated. And that's why now, when some idiots just come out of the sleep and they just take the opposite view and they start saying, this is what happens, whereas the reality is something different that I'm putting forward. And then somebody says, well, but that guy has a long beard, that guy puts a basma or tilak, that guy speaks Sanskrit, that guy has a PhD, that guy has some other degree, that guy looks smart, that guy looks taller, fat, thin, whatever is people's preference. And they say, well, maybe he's right. Yeah. Well, you are going to make that judgment based on your buddhi. Okay, sattva rajatama, based on your mind, quality of a mind, your intellect. You can change it, but only you can change it. Nobody else can change it. Okay, uddare natmana manam natmanam avasadaya. All right, so now let's get into the simulation, and we are going to look at the first two in this remaining part. All right, so let me stop this, and I am going to initiate the simulation. Last time, if you remember what we looked at the central circle plane, that is the ecliptic, okay, sun's path as seen from the earth. Notice the earth at the center, axis going through the center of the earth. Now that's an imaginary line going up in the sky in the northern hemisphere, and straight line going through the earth's core, imaginary again, but in the southern hemisphere. Okay, that line where it touches the sky, again imaginary, okay, that point is called NCP, North Celestial Point, North Celestial Pole. If that line extended imaginary again, going in the southern direction, when it touches the sky in the southern hemisphere, Australia, South Africa, Argentina, Chile, etc., okay, New Zealand, Fiji Islands, and so on. Okay, the place where it touches the sky or appears to touch the sky, that is the South Celestial Point. How do we know that visually? That is the point, if you keep on observing the night stars, either of the hemisphere, but again, we'll stick to northern hemisphere, you will see all the other stars seems to move. But as you get closer to that NCP, either the star moves in a very small circle, or finally, if you find the exact NCP, nothing is moving, whether there is a star or not. That spot is there. Everything, all the stars in that northern area near that polar region, polar area in the sky, appears to be going around in a circle around that point. That point is NCP, because that's where Earth is rotating. The moment is apparent. Okay, so that point is a fixed point. It's like any kind of wheel, that's just going around like a tire. The center point of the tire is not moving, so to say. Any wheel, right? You can look at it. The center point is, the motion is zero. That's what it is. That's NCP in the upper area, that's the south area. In fact, the precession of the Earth's axis is really precession of the Earth's axis, and it's not the precession of the equinoxes. Yes, the equinoxes movement happens, but that is the outcome of the original movement, which is the precession of the Earth's axis. How does that happen? Let's just do a quick animation here. Okay. So now we have a choice. We can either move the nakshatras or move these cardinal points. Okay. Now here we are not showing sun moving in every year, moon moving every month. We are not showing that. We are just showing the shift of that cardinal point with respect to nakshatra. Okay. This is that combined tropical and sidereal system calendar together. Okay. It will make one complete circle in 26,000 years. Okay, there are these two circles here on the left. You may ignore them for now. Actually, we are going to get to them very fast. Okay, so what is the first point? The point of NCP moves. Okay, and what is the pole point? Wherever that Earth's axis, imaginary axis, seems to point in the sky. If that position is changing, guess what? If there is a bright, distinct star next to that point of NCP, we call it a pole star. But if the NCP is changing, what's going to happen? Okay, where in the sky the Earth's axis is pointing is not going to be there. So there was a star, we called it a pole star, but few thousand years go by and the Earth's axis is going to point somewhere else. So that star is no longer a pole star. So wherever else it points to in the sky, if there happens to be a bright star, we call that a pole star. Okay, so now we are going to look at it. Today, right now, okay, there is no bright star in the southern hemisphere next to the point of SCP, but there is a distinct bright star next to the point of NCP. I'm going to move that. See, this pink dot and the green dot are pointing NCP, showing NCP, SCP. I'm going to move slightly so that you can see the star that was covered by the point of NCP, that pink dot. This star is called Polaris, and that is our pole star. So right now, when we say Dhruva Tara, we are referring to Polaris. In southern hemisphere, there is no distinct star, bright star at that point. So there is no Dhruva Tara, there is no pole star in the southern hemisphere. But that's not always the case. Okay, I'm going to take you back all the way to 26,000 years, and we will start this whole cycle again. This time, I want you to focus here. Focus on this pink dot, which is the point of NCP, and focus on this bright green dot, which is the point of SCP. There is no bright star next to SCP right now, no pole star in the southern hemisphere. When I say now, that's going back 26,000 years. That is the situation exactly similar to what we have today, because that's the cyclical period, 26,000 years. We get exactly or similar, identical, close to identical situation. Okay, so let's begin. I'm going to stop this at many points. So now notice, say if I stop here, that was like, say 2000 years after that. Or if we have to think of this as a future, in 4000 CE, which is to say 2000 years from now, this star, I don't know the name of it, but this bright star, whatever it is close to the point of NCP, and this will be considered our North Pole star 2000 years from now, not Polaris, our current pole star. In the south, what we can see, well, there are some minor stars, but not very bright stars. So there will be still no distinct pole star in the south. Okay, keep on going. In fact, what I'm going to do, I will stop someplace here, like here. Okay, what time is it? Like 16,000 BCE. Okay, so about 18,000 years ago, when India was doing sophisticated navigation around the world. You know, Pumpuhar port is a wonderful evidence of that. What scenario we had? There was no distinct pole star in the northern hemisphere, but there was, I don't know the name of it, but there was one very distinct bright pole star in the southern hemisphere. Next time, I'm going to stop it when the points of NCP and SCP come close to the brightest possible pole stars in both hemispheres. if you come to this one is 11,820. It's minus 12000, just giving a whole number for easy. It's easy for people to remember. So 12,000 BC, 14,000 years ago, time of Ramayana, what did we have? We had the brightest star that is possible that can become a North Pole star, Brahma Rashi, Abhijit, Brahma Nakshatra was the pole star during Ramayana times. And as it happens, in the southern hemisphere, the brightest star that is possible that can become a pole star, Canopus or Agastya in Indian astronomy, okay, was also a pole star, was very close to the point of SCP. Now, somebody will say, here, when I was here, I did not consider something to be a pole star, but here I am considering either Brahma Rashi, Abhijit, Brahma Nakshatra, Vega as a pole star, or Canopus, Agastya as a pole star. The reason is, even when they are relatively away from the point of NCP or SCP, because they are bright, and as long as you understand the deviation from the NCP or SCP, you can incorporate into your calculations. You are good to travel on the land and know exactly where you are, or travel on the ocean. And that's what the ancient Indian Hindu seafarers did. Something else. We see that particular star. Now this Abhijit, Brahma Rashi, you had heard, Abhijit is also considered a nakshatra. Okay, that's very difficult to show it here. 28 nakshatra. But what is interesting is that this Abhijit is mentioned as a Abhijit in both Ramayana and Mahabharata, okay, referring to that same star. In Mahabharata, it comes as Abhijit Spardamana tu Rohine Kanyashasvasa Icchanti Jeshtata Devi Tapastaptum Vanamgata. Now, this reference occurs in Mahabharata when it comes as Abhijit Spardamana tu Rohini Kanyashasvasa. It is not coming in the contact. It has nothing to do with the timing of Mahabharata. Just like I created one YouTube video in falsifying the idiocy of one Indic fellow under the title Doodh Ka Doodh, Pani Ka Pani. Here also, that same junta has made all kinds of atrocious nonsense. I mean, there is no other euphemistic word for this. Atrocious nonsense, foolish, idiotic. There is no other word for this. I mean, any other word will not do justice to the kind of idiocy that has been created by them. Okay. For example, this Abhijit is mentioned in Mahabharata. Abhijit is mentioned in Ramayana. Okay. You can read the 5th chapter, I think, of my When Did the Mahabharata War Happen book. It says Fall of Abhijit. I think it's 5th, maybe 4th. Let me see. Come on. Where is it? Okay, 5th chapter, correct. Okay, the fall of Abhijit. So that has to do with, in fact, it points to a timeline of about, time period of about 14,500 BCE. Okay, be it as it may. Fast forward to 7,500 years ago. And how's this Brahma Rashi or Brahmyam Nakshatra is mentioned? It is mentioned in the context of the position of the Mars on the first day of the Mahabharata war, 16 October 5561 BCE. Mars has gone Vakri near Magha. It has gone Vakri again near Jeshta Anuradha. That itself tells us Vakri in Mahabharata context does not mean retrograde. It has gone retrograde, of course, all the planets will do. And it has gone retrograde near Swati and Vishakha. Sorry, Swati and Chitra. Dhruvam prajulitam ghoram apasavya pravartate chitra swatyantare chaiva dishtitah parushagraha. Okay, or Magha Swangarako Vakra Shravani cha Brahaspati. Okay, Jupiter has also gone Vakra, which is oblique crossing across the ecliptic, that blue line. Okay, Jupiter has done near Shravana. Mars has done twice, once near Magha, another time near Jeshta Anuradha. Prutva Changarako Vakra Jeshtaya Madhusudana Anuradha Prarthayate Maitram Samshamanyanniva. And then when it has gone retrograde, That is how near Chitra and Swati. Dhruvam prachulitam goram apasavya pravartate Chitra swatyantare chaiva dishtita parushagra, which is also explained another place by what? Krutva changarako vakra jishtaya madhusudana anuradha prarthayate maitram samashamayanniva. But nunam mahad bhayam krishna kuruna samupastitam visheshenai varshneya chitra pidayate graha. In a very peculiar fashion, this Mars was giving trouble, afflicting, pida to Chitra. Why am I saying this? These motions, after going vakra twice, retrograde once, vakra anuvakra, it says vakranu krutvam cha shravane pavaka prava. Then this Mars came near bright Shravana nakshatra. Next to that is a Abhijit Brahma Rashi. Okay. And then it says Brahma Rashi samavruta lohitango vyavastita. And then it came and settled beautifully along the same samavruta, same Vrutta, okay, same longitude as Brahma Rashi, Abhijit, Brahmi Nakshatra. If you look at the Pataved, how Pataved becomes powerful. If you look at the Kumbhakonam edition, Gita Press edition and Nilakanta Chaturdhar edition says Brahma Rashi Samavrutta, which means the same thing. Kumbhakonam edition says Brahmyam Nakshatra Samavrutta. How beautiful. Nakshatra of Brahma. Do you know what is the Nakshatra of Brahma? Abhijit. Brahma Rashi. Well, that's why it's called Brahma Rashi. And if you see the Devata of a Nakshatra Abhijit, it's Brahma. That's how beautiful it is in Mahabharata. Let's come to Ramayana, because that's where I have stopped it 14,000 years ago, the timing of Ramayana. It's beautifully explained what is the North Pole Star of Ramayana times. Brahma Rashi Vishuddhasya Shuddhasya Paramarshaya Archishmantah Prakashante Dhruvam Sarve Pradakshinam. All the Saptarshis are going around Brahma Rashi, the bright pole star. Brahma Rashi, okay? So that is that. Now, what is interesting, Ramayana doesn't have a statement which says, oh, by the way, and the Canopus Agastya was the southern pole star. But indirectly, but very decisively, and this is thanks to Rupa Bhatti and her great research there on the Canopus. When Sugriva is giving instructions to the Vanara party going in the southern direction, he says, you know what, as you go towards Lanka, these are the landmarks. And everyone seems to know Agastya. That's how ancient Indian astronomy is. But he says, unless you go all the way to the southern tip of India and you climb the mountain Mahendra, which is what? Which is now to the south and, to the north and to the west of Kanyakumari. Okay. Unless you climb the Mount Mahendra, until you climb, you will not see Canopus. The southern tip of India. Now, what's a big deal? Today, you can see Canopus from Delhi, Mumbai, everywhere in India, practically. Kurukshetra is the upper limit, by the way. After that, you cannot see Canopus ever, so to say. Okay, because it's in the southern hemisphere and within that circle of the ring of the polar region, celestial polar region. Because at that time, as I'm showing you here, the Canopus has also become a southern pole star. Okay, so therefore, it was only place it was visible was from the tip of the Mount Mahendra. And even why it was visible even from there? Because actually it is somewhat deviated. It's not very close to the point of SCP, but rather few degrees away. And that's why it could be seen. Otherwise, even that might have been impossible. Anyways, how beautifully it connects it. And these references are embedded. And if you have to understand the references, we have to understand the precession of the Earth's axis and its consequences. This is consequence number 1. Consequence number 2, we have already covered. Just notice, like you decide which particular point you want to focus on. Okay, the summer solstice, let's do summer solstice. Okay, and I'll tell you why summer solstice, because intuitively it's easy to understand. Okay, look at the Earth's axis and Earth's inclination. Okay, so Earth inclination is such that when the sun is going around the Earth and it comes at a point where sun's direct rays can hit the maximum portion of that northern hemisphere here in this particular position, that is the point of summer solstice. Okay, so see this inclination, wherever the Earth's inclination is, along that line when the sun shows up, that is the point of summer solstice. Now, if this axis is moving, guess what? The point of summer solstice is moving, right? Straight with respect to the nakshatra reference frame. So that's a good way of understanding that because of the precession, the nakshatra at the cardinal point, and therefore the nakshatra of the sun when sun comes to that cardinal point, and therefore the season. Okay, when a particular season would occur all depends on the sun. And if sun has a assigned position of a nakshatra as a reference frame, then we say, when sun is in this nakshatra, like say, for example, right now, we say when sun is near Mrugashirsha Ardra, that's when summer solstice occurs. And now notice what is the opposite of that, because the full moon would occur opposite of that. Okay, so where would it occur? Full moon would occur somewhere here. And what is the nakshatra of the full moon? Purva Ashada, Jeshta, somewhere here. From Anuradha, Jeshta, Mula, Purva Ashada, Uttara Ashada. That's why when 21st of June occurs in our times, the lunar month, the Chandramas, the Saumya Mas is what? Jeshta or Ashada. But guess what? If we go back to, say, actually I explained number 3 here, by the way, so that's fine. We will do it again. But if we go back to the Mahabharata times, now where is my summer solstice? Summer solstice is near Nakshatra, Chitra, Hasta, Uttara, Falguni, Swati, somewhere there. At that time, the full moon at the time of summer solstice would be here. And what would be its nakshatra? Its nakshatra would be Bhadrapad, Revati, Ashwini, Bharani, which means what? Just like in our times, the summer solstice occurs in Jeshta Ashada as the Chandramas. At the time of Mahabharata, the summer solstice was occurring near the lunar month of Bhadrapada Ashwin. You follow? Because if the sun's position is changing with respect to that particular summer solstice as with respect to the nakshatra, then guess what? The moon's position or the name of the moon, lunar month comes from the full moon position. Full moon position is also going to change. It's exactly opposite of the sun's position. So if sun position is changing, the full moon's position is going to change. Therefore, a particular lunar month that is associated with any given season is also going to change because of the precession. That's actually the point number 3, by the way. Okay, all right. But if you got the first 2 points, guys, we are done. Okay, so I will repeat this point of the lunar month. Why lunar month also shifts with respect to season because of the precession. Okay, and then the last point is why a relative orientations of the stars as they go around the North Pole point or the South Pole point, that will also change the way it happened for to the pair, celestial pair, as Vasishta and Arundhati. That we will do in the last and third part. All right, that's all we have here. Please spend time watching this. If you need to watch multiple times, so be it. Do it until it comes home. Namaskar.